Aaliyah had always been different, but not in a bad way. She was 16, tall, proud, and strong. Not just strong in spirit, she was built like an athlete. Her arms were toned, her legs solid, and when she walked into a room, you noticed her. Some people admired that. Others didn't know what to make of it. She grew up in a small neighborhood where most kids played outside until the streetlights came on. Her parents worked hard. Her mom is a nurse, her dad fixing cars. They taught Aaliyah and her younger sister how to be tough, kind, and proud of who they were. No matter what. From a young age, Aaliyah loved sports. She ran fast, jumped high, and lifted anything she could get her hands on. Her older brother, who was into fitness, showed her how to train properly. He told her, "Muscle isn't scary. It's strength." So she trained. Hard. She learned how to push herself, how to eat right, and how to take care of her body. It made her feel powerful. By the time she got to high school, she was already one of the strongest girls in gym class. She could lift more than some of the boys and run faster than most of the track team. Teachers liked having her on their teams because she showed up ready. Coaches saw potential, but not everyone was happy for her. At first, it was little things. A laugh here, a comment there. Someone would say something about her arms being too big, or ask if she used something to look that way. Aaliyah laughed it off. She thought maybe they were just joking around. But the jokes didn't stop. They started happening every day. In gym class, when she changed clothes, she could hear girls whispering behind the lockers. In the hallway, some students stared like she didn't belong. One girl even said out loud, "Why does she look like that? It's not normal." Aaliyah tried not to let it get to her. She reminded herself that she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was healthy. She was fit. She was confident. But confidence can only carry you so far when the world keeps telling you, "You're too much." Her brother noticed something was off one night when they were training together. She wasn't focused. She kept looking at herself in the mirror like she was trying to see what everyone else saw. He asked her what was going on. She shrugged and said, "Nothing." That was the first lie. Inside, she was starting to feel like maybe the problem was her. Like maybe she should stop working out so hard. Maybe she should wear baggier clothes. Maybe she should try to blend in more. But then again, why should she? She remembered the feeling of crossing the finish line first, in a race. The joy in her coach's voice when she broke a school record. The pride in her parents' eyes when they watched her compete. That was real. And no one should have to hide something real. Still, the pressure was building. Every time she walked into school, she felt like she was walking into a spotlight she never asked for. Some days she wondered if it would be easier to just disappear. But Aaliyah wasn't the kind of person to back down. Not yet. Not ever. What she didn't know was that the teasing was about to turn into something worse. Something louder. Something harder to ignore. And soon, it wouldn't just be about her looks. It would be about whether she was allowed to exist, the way she was, strong, black, and unapologetically herself. But for now, she still believed that if she stayed strong and kept her head up, everything would work out. She had no idea how much stronger she would have to become. The teasing that once felt like background noise was now everywhere Aaliyah turned. What started as whispers had grown into full-on comments. She'd hear them in the hallway, during lunch, even from across the gym. Some people laughed like it was a joke. Others stared like she was something strange they had never seen before. "Yo, look at her arms. She got more muscle than some guys I know. Why she gotta be built like that? Ain't normal for a girl." Maybe she on something? It wasn't just the words anymore. It was the way people looked at her. Like she didn't belong. Like her body was something to be questioned instead of celebrated. At first she tried to laugh it off, tried to act like it didn't hurt, but inside it did. Every time someone made a comment, every time another girl gave her a fake smile while whispering behind her back, it cut deeper than she wanted to admit. In gym class, things got worse. One day during weight training, one of the girls walked past Aaliyah while she was doing curls and said loud enough for others to hear, "She probably takes steroids." The girl's friend giggled, and soon others joined in. Aaliyah pretended not to hear. She kept lifting. Her hands were shaking, but she refused to stop. After class, she went to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror. She looked at herself, not just her face, but everything. Her shoulders, her arms, her legs. Was there really something wrong with how she looked? She remembered how proud she used to feel when she saw her muscles grow, how strong she felt when she lifted heavier weights or ran faster than everyone else. But now all she could see were the parts people didn't like. That night, she asked her mom a question that had been sitting heavy on her chest. "Mama, is it weird for a girl to be this strong?" Her mom stopped what she was doing and looked at her closely. "No," she said firmly. "Not at all. Why you asking that?" Aaliyah shrugged, just wondering. Her mom didn't push, but she could tell something was going on. Still, Aaliyah didn't want to say too much. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it, not yet. But it was a big deal. Soon, the teasing turned into something crueler. Someone took a picture of her during gym class and posted it online with a caption, "When a girl looks like a guy." Comments poured in. Some were mean, others were confused. A few tried to defend her, but most just laughed. One of her teammates saw it and showed it to her during lunch. "You okay?" he asked. Aaliyah nodded, even though her stomach was turning. "Yeah," she said. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. She started wearing bigger clothes, hoodies, long sleeves, even in warm weather. She stopped changing in front of others in the locker room. She skipped meals sometimes because she thought maybe if she ate less, she wouldn't be so strong. Maybe then people would leave her alone. Her brother noticed the change. He found her one day looking tired, barely touching her food. "What's going on with you?" he asked. "Nothing," she said again. He shook his head. "You always say, nothing. But I can see it. You're not yourself." She looked down. For the first time, she felt like she could cry. "They don't like how I look," she whispered. Her brother frowned. "Who cares what they think?" "I do," she admitted. "I don't want to be different." He sat next to her. "You are different. That's a good thing. You're strong, you work hard. You should be proud of that." "But nobody else sees it like that," she said softly. "They will," he told her. "Or they'll realize they're wrong." But it wasn't that easy. School? Things kept getting worse. One day in gym class, the teacher split everyone into teams. When Aaliyah was picked early, one of the girls rolled her eyes and said, "Of course we get the man on our team." Everyone laughed. Even some of the kids who usually liked her joined in. Aaliyah felt her face burn. She clenched her fists and tried to walk away, but the words followed her like a shadow. That night she stood in front of the mirror again. This time she didn't see strength. She saw why people didn't understand her. She saw why they made fun of her. And for the first time she wondered if maybe she should quit sports altogether. If she wasn't on the track team, if she wasn't in the gym, if she wasn't lifting weights, maybe people would stop talking. Maybe she could disappear into the crowd and finally feel normal. But deep down she knew quitting wasn't the answer. It just didn't feel like she had another choice. The pressure was building. Each day at school felt like walking through fire. And Aaliyah was starting to wonder if she was strong enough to keep going through it. What she didn't know was that the worst was still ahead. But somewhere inside her, beneath the hurt and confusion, there was still a spark. And someday soon, that spark was going to turn into something powerful. The bullying reached its peak one day during gym class. Aaliyah had been dreading this moment for weeks. She could feel it coming, like a storm on the horizon. And when it hit, it felt like everything inside her shattered. It started innocently. Enough. The teacher announced they'd be practicing push-ups as part of their warm-up routine. Everyone groaned, but no one protested. Aaliyah stepped forward confidently. Push-ups were easy for her. She dropped down and began pumping them out, effortlessly, her arms steady and controlled. Around her, some students struggled to complete even 5 reps. That's when it happened. One of the girls near her leaned back dramatically, clutching her chest like she was about to faint. Her friends erupted into giggles, pointing at Aaliyah. "Oh, my gosh, look at her muscles," the girl gasped theatrically. "I think I'm going to die just looking at her. The entire class burst into laughter. Some kids clapped sarcastically. Others snickered under their breath. Even the teacher stood there awkwardly, unsure of what to say. Aaliyah froze mid-push-up. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor and never come back up. Instead, she pushed herself off the ground, grabbed her towel, and bolted out of the gym without saying a word. She ran straight to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall. Tears streamed down her face as she sat there, knees pulled tight against her chest. All those months of trying to ignore the teasing, all the times she told herself it didn't matter, it all came crashing down in that moment. For the first time, she let herself cry. Really cry. Not because she was hurt by the words, alone, but because she felt completely alone. Like nobody understood what it was like to carry this weight. Not just the physical kind, but the emotional burden too. When she finally went home that evening, her mom noticed something was wrong immediately. Aaliyah usually walked in smiling, ready to talk about her day. But tonight she barely said hello before heading to her room. Her mom knocked gently on the door a few minutes later. "Aaliyah, can I come in?" There was silence, then a quiet, "Yeah." Her mom sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her daughter. Aaliyah's eyes were red, her face streaked with tears. Wordlessly, her mom opened her arms, and Aaliyah fell into them, sobbing. "What's going on?" her mom asked softly once Aaliyah calmed down a little. Between sniffles, Aaliyah told her everything. The whispers, the stares, the cruel jokes, and finally, the fake fainting act in gym class. Her mom listened carefully, her expression growing, more serious with each word. When Aaliyah finished, her mom hugged her tightly. "You are beautiful," she said firmly, "and strong. Stronger than anyone who tries to bring you down. Don't let them take that away from you." But Aaliyah shook her head. "It doesn't matter what you think, Mama, or what I think. They see me differently. And they're never gonna stop." Her mom didn't argue. She knew how much pain her daughter was in. Instead, she promised to help however she could. The next morning, Aaliyah's mom called the school principal. She explained what had been happening and demanded action. The principal assured her they would investigate and remind teachers to enforce anti-bullying policies. But deep down, Aaliyah's mom wasn't convinced anything meaningful would change. At school, things only got worse. Word spread quickly about Aaliyah's breakdown in gym class. Now, instead of just mocking her physique, people whispered about her being too sensitive. One boy even muttered loud enough for her to hear, "If she can't handle a joke, maybe she shouldn't work out so much." Aaliyah felt cornered. Every hallway seemed longer than the last. Every classroom felt colder. She stopped participating in discussions, avoided eye contact, and kept her headphones on whenever possible. Sports, which used to be her escape, now felt like a trap. She considered quitting the track team altogether. Her coach noticed the shift. After practice one day, he pulled her aside. "You've been off lately," he said. "What's going on?" Aaliyah hesitated. She didn't want to seem weak or incapable, but something about his tone made her open up. Slowly, haltingly, she told him about the bullying and how it was affecting her performance and her life. The coach nodded thoughtfully. "You know, strength isn't just about lifting weights or running fast. It's about standing tall, even when people try to knock you down. You're one of the strongest people I know, not because of your body, but because of who you are." His words stayed with her long after their conversation ended. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she didn't have to quit. Maybe she could find a way to rise above this. That weekend, Aaliyah spent hours talking to her brother. He reminded her why she started training in the first place, not to impress anyone, but to challenge herself. To grow stronger, both physically and mentally. "If you let them win, they'll always win," he said. "Don't give them the power to define you." By Sunday night, Aaliyah had made a decision. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She wasn't going to shrink herself to fit someone else's idea of normal. If people couldn't accept her for who she was, that was their problem, not hers. On Monday morning, she walked into school wearing her favorite tank top, the one that showed off her arms. Heads turned and whispers followed, but she kept her chin up. She focused on her goals, finishing strong in sports, graduating with honors, and proving to herself that she was unstoppable. It wasn't easy. The bullying didn't magically stop overnight. But something inside Aaliyah shifted. She stopped seeing herself through other people's eyes. She started believing in her own worth again. And though she didn't realize it yet, this was just the beginning of her journey toward true strength. Aaliyah's decision to stop hiding didn't mean everything suddenly got easier. In fact, some days felt harder than before. But she had made up her mind. No matter what people said or did, they wouldn't control how she lived her life. She was determined to reclaim her strength, not just physically but emotionally too. The first test came during gym class on Monday morning. As soon as she walked in wearing her tank top, the whispers started. Some kids snickered. Others stared, like they couldn't believe she'd dare show off her arms again. Aaliyah ignored them as best she could, focusing instead on warming up for the day's activities. When the teacher announced they'd be doing sprints outside, she felt a small flicker of relief. Running was something she loved. It gave her space to breathe, to think, to feel free. But even then, the teasing followed her. One boy shouted from the sidelines, "Look at her go. Bet she'll break the track." His friends laughed, and Aaliyah stumbled mid-stride, embarrassment flooding through her. For a moment, she wanted to quit right there, to walk off the field and never look back. But something inside her pushed her forward. She finished the sprint, chest heaving, sweat dripping down her face. And when she crossed the finish line first, she allowed herself a tiny smile. That night, she wrote in her journal for the first time in months. At first, she wasn't sure what to say. Her pen hovered over the page, unsure where to begin. Then she started writing about how much it hurt when people laughed at her, about how tired she was of feeling like she didn't belong, about how scared she was that maybe they were right, that maybe there was something wrong with her. But as she kept writing, her thoughts shifted. She began listing all the things she loved about herself: her speed, her determination, her ability to push through pain. She reminded herself of every race she'd won, every weight she'd lifted, every goal she'd achieved. By the time she closed her journal, tears were streaming down her face, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pride. Her brother noticed the change almost immediately. When she joined him for their usual evening workout, he saw a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there in weeks. "You good?" he asked, handing her a dumbbell. "Getting there," she replied with a small smile. Over the next few weeks, Aaliyah threw herself into training harder than ever before. She ran faster, lifted heavier, and pushed past limits she didn't know she had. Her brother encouraged her every step of the way, reminding her why she started this journey in the first place. "It's not about proving anything to anyone else," he told her one evening. "It's about proving it to yourself." His words stuck with her. Slowly, she began reframing how she thought about her body. Instead of seeing her muscles as a source of shame, she started viewing them as symbols of power. Every rep, every sprint, every bead of sweat became proof that she was strong enough to handle whatever came her way. At school, things didn't magically improve overnight. The teasing continued, though it seemed less frequent now. Maybe because Aaliyah carried herself differently, shoulders back, head high, unbothered by the stares. Or maybe because a few classmates started noticing how unfair the bullying was and quietly spoke up in her defense. One girl, who had once been part of the group mocking her, approached Aaliyah after practice one day. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "for everything. I didn't realize how much we were hurting you." Aaliyah blinked, surprised. "Thanks," she said simply. She didn't hold any grudges, but forgiveness didn't come easily either. Another turning point came when her coach pulled her aside after a particularly grueling practice session. "I've been watching you," he said. "You're stronger than most athletes twice your age. Have you ever thought about competing?" Aaliyah frowned. "Competing? Like in a meet?" He nodded. "There's a regional youth powerlifting competition coming up. You'd crush it." The idea scared her. Competing meant putting herself out there in front of strangers, risking judgment all over again. but it also excited her. If she could prove to herself that she belonged on that platform, maybe she could silence the voices in her head telling her she wasn't good enough. With her brother's help, she started preparing for the competition. They worked tirelessly, perfecting her form, increasing her weights, and building her mental resilience. On tough days when self-doubt crept in, her brother reminded her why she was doing this. "This isn't about winning," he said. "It's about showing up for yourself." Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Aaliyah stood backstage, heart pounding, hands trembling. She glanced around at the other competitors, some bigger, some smaller, all focused on their routines. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if she was making a mistake. What if she failed? What if everyone laughed? Then she remembered her mom's words, "You are beautiful and strong." She took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and stepped onto the platform. Lifting in front of an audience was nothing like practicing alone. The lights were bright, the crowd loud, but as soon as Aaliyah gripped the barbell, everything else faded away. It was just her and the weight. She exhaled slowly, tightened her core, and lifted. The bar rose steadily, inch by inch, until it cleared her chest. Cheers erupted around her, but she barely heard them. All she felt was triumph. By the end of the competition, Aaliyah had earned second place. A silver medal hung proudly around her neck. It wasn't gold, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the fire in her chest, burning brighter than ever before. When she returned to school the following week, something had changed. People still stared, but now their looks carried a hint of admiration. Some even congratulated her. One boy who had teased her relentlessly muttered, "I guess you really are strong." Aaliyah smiled to herself, not because she needed his approval, but because she knew she'd earned it. Still, she understood that this was only the beginning. Winning a medal didn't erase the scars left by months of bullying, but it gave her hope. Hope that she could rise above the negativity. Hope that she could inspire others to do the same. And so, with newfound confidence, Aaliyah decided to take her story beyond the walls of her school. She wanted to share her journey, not just to heal herself, but to help others who might be struggling too. Little did she know, her voice was about to reach farther than she ever imagined. Aaliyah couldn't shake the feeling that her story wasn't just hers anymore. Winning second place at the powerlifting competition had opened doors she never expected. People, teachers, classmates, even strangers, started asking questions. They wanted to know how she trained, what kept her going, and most importantly, how she stayed strong when so many tried to tear her down. At first, she didn't know how to answer. She'd always seen herself as just another girl trying to get through high school without losing herself in the process. But now she realized her journey might mean something to others too. One evening, sitting on her bed scrolling through social media, Aaliyah stumbled across a post from someone she barely knew. The caption read, "Why does everyone hate girls? Who look different? Why can't we celebrate strength instead of tearing each other down?" Below it were hundreds of comments, some supportive, others cruel. Aaliyah stared at the screen for a long time, her chest tightening. This wasn't just about her anymore. There were other girls out there dealing with the same struggles, feeling like they didn't belong because of how their bodies looked. She turned to her brother later that night. "What if I started sharing my story online?" she asked hesitantly. He raised an eyebrow. "Like posting videos or something?" "Yeah," she said. "Maybe it could help people." Her brother smiled. "That's a great idea. You've got a lot to say." The next day, Aaliyah created a social media page called Strong Black Girl. Her first post was simple, a photo of herself holding the silver medal from the competition, along with a short caption, "Being strong doesn't make me less of a girl, it makes me more of myself. Body positivity. Strength is beautiful." Within hours, the post blew up. Friends liked and shared it. Classmates commented with messages of support. Even some of the kids who had teased her before posted apologies. But what surprised Aaliyah most were the messages from people she didn't know. Girls her age, younger teens, even adults reaching out to thank her for speaking up. I've been bullied for being muscular too, one message read. Thank you for showing me I'm not alone. Another said, I used to hide my arms because I thought no one would ever accept me. Seeing you embrace yourself gives me hope. Reading those messages made Aaliyah's heart swell. She hadn't expected this kind of response, but it fueled her determination to keep going. Over the next few weeks, she began posting regularly, workout tips, motivational quotes, and personal reflections about her own experiences. She talked openly about the bullying, the pain it caused, and how she learned to rise above it. Each post felt like therapy, not just for her, but for anyone tuning in. Her big breakthrough came when she decided to share a video. Sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, Aaliyah turned on her phone camera and spoke directly to the lens. Hey everyone, she started nervously. So, I've been thinking a lot about body image lately, about how society tells us what we're supposed to look like, and how hard it is when you don't fit that mold. For me, being strong has always been part of who I am. But growing up, I faced a lot of negativity because of it. People called me names, laughed at me, and made me feel like I didn't belong. And honestly, there were days when I believed them. She paused, taking a deep breath. But here's the thing. I'm done letting other people define me. My muscles aren't weird. They're proof of how far I've come. Proof that I can handle anything life throws my way. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt like you don't belong, please know this. You do. You are enough exactly as you are. And together, we can change the way people see strength. When she hit upload, her hands were shaking. She worried about judgment, backlash, or worse, silence. But within minutes, the video went viral. Thousands of views poured in overnight. Comments flooded her inbox, many from people saying her words resonated deeply with them. Local news outlets picked up the story, calling her a role model for young women everywhere. Teachers invited her to speak at school assemblies. Coaches praised her for using her platform to inspire others. For the first time in months, Aaliyah felt truly seen. Not as the girl with the muscular physique, but as someone who mattered. Someone who could make a difference. As her online presence grew, so did her confidence. She started visiting schools in her area to talk about bullying and body positivity. Standing in front of crowds of students, she shared her story with honesty and vulnerability. She told them about the hurtful comments, the fake fainting act in gym class, and the moments when she questioned whether she should give up sports altogether. But she also told them about finding strength in herself, about learning to love who she was despite what others said. You don't have to be perfect, she often said during these talks. You just have to be brave enough to be yourself. That's where real strength comes from. Her speeches resonated deeply with students, especially girls who felt pressured to conform to narrow beauty standards. After one assembly, a shy freshman approached her with tears in her eyes. I've been hiding my body for years, the girl admitted. But hearing you talk, it makes me think maybe I don't have to anymore. Aaliyah hugged her tightly. You don't, she whispered. Promise me you'll remember that. By senior year, Aaliyah had become a force to be reckoned with. Not just in sports, but in her community. She graduated as valedictorian, delivering a powerful commencement speech about resilience and self-acceptance. Her track team won regionals, and she earned a scholarship to a university known for its women's weightlifting program. But more than any trophy or accolade, what mattered most to Aaliyah was the impact she'd made. Through her social media page, her speeches, and her unwavering authenticity, she had sparked conversations about body image and bullying that reached far beyond her hometown. Girls across the country messaged her daily, thanking her for helping them find courage in their own skin. Still, Aaliyah knew her journey wasn't over. She dreamed of doing even more, of writing a book, starting a nonprofit, mentoring young athletes. She wanted to create spaces where girls could train, grow, and thrive without fear of judgment. And though she still carried scars from the past, they no longer defined her. Instead, they reminded her of how far she'd come, and how much farther she could go. Because Aaliyah wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And she was determined to take as many people with her as possible. Years passed, but Aaliyah's journey didn't end when high school did. If anything, it grew bigger. Leaving her hometown for college was both exciting and terrifying. For the first time, she'd be stepping into a world where no one knew her story or the struggles she had faced. But instead of shrinking back, Aaliyah carried her strength with her like armor. She wasn't just going to survive college, she was going to thrive. At university, she joined the women's weightlifting team and quickly became one of their star athletes. Her teammates admired not only her physical power, but also her determination and leadership. Off the platform, she continued using her voice to advocate for body positivity and mental health. She organized workshops, led discussions, and even started a mentorship program for young girls interested in sports. Slowly, she built a community around her, a group of people who celebrated strength in all its forms. But Aaliyah's biggest dream was still ahead of her, writing a memoir. She wanted to share her full story, the highs, the lows, and everything in between, not just through social media posts or speeches, but in a way that could reach even more people. Late at night, after practice and classes, she sat at her desk, typing away. Each chapter felt like reliving pieces of her past, but this time, she wrote with clarity and purpose. She titled the book "Strong Enough," a phrase her brother often used to remind her of her worth. When the memoir was finally published, it hit shelves with a bang. Reviews poured in from readers everywhere, parents, teachers, coaches, and especially young women who saw themselves in Aaliyah's words. One review stood out to her. "Your story made me realize I don't have to hide anymore. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." The success of the book opened doors Aaliyah never imagined. She began traveling across the country, speaking at conferences, schools, and community centers. Her message was always the same. Strength isn't about how much weight you can lift. It's about standing tall when life tries to knock you down. One of her proudest moments came when she founded a nonprofit called Girls Who Lift. The organization focused on providing resources and safe spaces for young women to explore fitness without fear of judgment. They hosted free training sessions, nutrition workshops, and confidence-building seminars. Aaliyah worked tirelessly to make sure every girl felt welcome, regardless of her size, shape, or background. Through it all, she stayed grounded. Whenever doubt crept in, she reminded herself of where she started. From the teasing in gym class to the viral video that changed everything. Those memories weren't painful anymore. They were proof of how far she'd come. By her late 20s, Aaliyah had become a household name. Not because she sought fame, but because she refused to stay silent. She was invited to speak on national television, appeared in documentaries about body positivity, and even collaborated with brands to promote inclusive fitness gear. Everywhere she went, she brought her authentic self, unapologetic, unfiltered, and unstoppable. Still, some days were harder than others. There were moments when old insecurities surfaced, when comments online stung more than she expected. But Aaliyah learned to lean on her support system, her family, friends, and the countless fans who cheered her on. She reminded herself that perfection wasn't the goal, progress was. Her legacy wasn't just in the trophies she won or the books she wrote. It was in the lives she touched. Girls who once hid their arms now walked proudly in tank tops. Athletes who doubted themselves found courage to compete. Parents thanked her for teaching their daughters to embrace their bodies instead of criticizing them. Teachers credited her work with sparking important conversations in classrooms. One day, years later, Aaliyah returned to her hometown to visit her old high school. Walking through the familiar hallways brought back a flood of memories, some good, some painful. But as she stepped onto the stage during an assembly, the room erupted into applause. Hundreds of students cheered for her, holding up signs that read, "We are strong black girls." She smiled, blinking back tears. "I used to walk these halls feeling like I didn't belong," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "People told me I was too strong, too different, too much. But guess what? Being too much is exactly what makes us unstoppable. Don't let anyone tell you to shrink yourself to fit their idea of normal. You are enough just as you are." Afterward, dozens of students lined up to meet her. Some handed her letters, Others asked for advice, and a few simply hugged her without saying a word. One girl stayed behind until everyone else left. "I want to be like you when I grow up," the girl said shyly. Aaliyah knelt down to meet her eye to eye. "You already are," she replied. "All you need to do is believe in yourself." As she drove home that evening, Aaliyah reflected on how far she'd come. From the girl who cried in bathroom stalls to the woman inspiring thousands, her journey had been anything but easy. But every challenge, every tear, every moment of doubt had shaped her into who she was today. And though she knew there would always be critics, always be voices trying to bring her down, she no longer feared them, because she understood something, now that she hadn't before. Strength isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. It's the ability to rise after falling, to love yourself despite imperfections, and to keep moving forward even when the path feels impossible. That night, as she scrolled through messages from fans thanking her for changing their lives, Aaliyah closed her eyes and smiled. She thought about the little girl inside her who once wondered if she'd ever truly belong, and she whispered softly to herself, "You did it. You showed the world that being strong isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to celebrate." Because Aaliyah wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And she had shown the world that true strength comes not from muscles but from the heart.